What's up, horror fans, but more specifically, fans? Me and Danny, Dr. Zayas God, are here with you live to talk about Alien Romulus. Look, he's dancing over there. He's all excited. He's got a button-down shirt looking all fancy.
Oh, yeah. I got my Walmart exclusive right here.
Nice. I'm surprised you don't have like a chestburster shirt or something.
You know, I just saw Cavity Color, one of our favorite horror t-shirt companies, just put out a new chestburster shirt. And I was driving home from the train station. And I was like, shit, that's nice. I might have to get that one. I do have one Alien shirt, but I just walked in, just got myself a cup of water, wrote down a few notes. I was like, I'm just going to go with what I had on. So I'm ready to go.
Nice. So we're doing this live. I usually like to do some notes just so I can reference the actors and stuff like that, the behind the scenes. But Danny and I don't have a lot of time this weekend. We definitely want to talk about this movie. We want to get this review out. So Danny sent me this message.
Also, you are notorious for spelling names incorrectly. And I don't think you would have gotten Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson the way that they are spelled.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Which is that the guy that's Andy is the second name?
Yeah. David Johnson's last name is Jonsson.
Oh, yeah. I definitely would have had one S going there. So last night, Danny sends me a message. We both saw the movie. You know, he lives in New York. I live in Texas. And he's like, I think we're not going to agree on this, or there's going to be this discourse between us about this movie. And then I sent a message saying, does that mean that you really liked the movie and you think I didn't? And then he didn't write back. So I don't know if you really liked this movie, if you didn't, how you feel about this movie at all.
I'm still wrestling with my thoughts on this movie, but I think the word that best summarizes my opinion would be, I guess words would be slightly underwhelmed.
Okay.
I would probably put this at about a 6 out of 10 on first viewing.
Okay.
And I think it probably ends up comfortably in the middle of my Alien franchise ranking upon first viewing.
Okay.
Now, I'm in no way a majority in that opinion. I could tell from your reaction that you probably have it a little bit higher. And basically, I've seen two types of reactions to this on social media. I've looked at a couple of YouTube reviews since I saw it, not before I saw it. Chris Stuckman liked it. Cody Leach loved it.
Saw that.
And Movie Bob put it at kind of like a 5 or a 6. And Movie Bob and I kind of were on the same wavelength with one major disagreement. But then I went on, the bastion of good film criticism. I went on Twitter just to see because my thoughts on it are very mixed, and I'm really interested to have a conversation with you about it. And basically, I've been seeing two frames of thought. Either this is the best Aliens movie since 1986.
Right, I've seen that.
Or this movie was a complete disappointment, and it falls near the bottom of people's Alien rankings. And I'm neither of those opinions. I'm squarely in the middle. And I'm kind of curious to see, what your opinion is on it.
Sure.
Let's start off, since we're live, with some non-spoiler stuff, and then we'll have a very loud spoiler warning, and then we can talk about spoilers as we go through.
Sounds great. I love that. Yeah. So to kind of reveal my feelings, I love the Alien franchise. I think as far as franchises go, maybe it's my third favorite out of all the fucking franchises we review and talk about. And I'm not just talking horror. I'm talking about all franchises, right? I love this series. I'm actually kind of curious where you would rank certain movies, because you said that you would give this a 6. And so I'm like, okay, well, what number would you give to Covenant? Or what number would you give to Prometheus? And so
I literally just wrote my ranking down. I'll save it for later, but correct me if I'm wrong. If we're including the AVP movies,
Oh,
There's
see,
been 9 Alien movies.
there's 9. I think if you don't include the 2 Predator ones,
So we have
right?
Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Resurrection.
It's
And then
4.
we have Prometheus, Covenant, and Romulus.
Oh, okay. There's 8. Okay, I was
No,
off somewhere.
seven. There's 7.
7. Where the fuck did I get 9? Whatever. Well,
Because
whatever the
9 would
case.
be if you include the AVPs.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So if I'm going by just the 7 that you mentioned, right? Okay. I remember I was having a conversation about this, and I was like, "Oh, the xenomorph has been in 9 movies, right?" Um, to me, it's like Alien works when a director takes it and makes it their specific vision, right? And for the 4 original movies, it's like that's definitely David Fincher's film for Alien 3, even though the studio fucked it up. I can't even remember the fucking French director who did
He's the guy who did Delicatessen and
City of Lost Children.
City of Lost Children. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, whatever his name is, that's his movie. And then obviously Aliens is James Cameron's, and Ridley Scott is the original Alien, right? This movie feels like, I think it was Cody Leach who said this. He said it's like, no. It was Chris Stuckman who said it. He said it's, what the fuck is the movie with the blind guy?
Oh, I just looked up his fucking no.
Don't breathe.
Don't breathe.
He said it's Don't Breathe in space, right? Like it's Don't Breathe, but in the Alien franchise. And I feel like that's what this is. I've only seen the Evil Dead 2013 movie when it comes to Fede Alvarez. That's it. And so I feel like this movie is like that, but instead of Evil Dead and it's in a cabin, it's Alien. It's in the Alien franchise. It's like, yeah.
So all I'll say to that is, how much I love the Evil Dead franchise. It's probably my favorite overall franchise. I think there are 5 great movies of different genres throughout. And then there's an awesome TV series that spanned 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And what I will say about Fede Alvarez is that I love Evil Dead 2013. And I thought he did almost the impossible, where he took like a sanctified horror movie and he made it his own. And he raised the level of gore to a level that I think Sam Raimi was almost jealous of, because Sam Raimi didn't have the money and the ability to do that in 1980-81.
Right.
I didn't love Don't Breathe or Don't Breathe 2, which was directed by his writing partner, Rodo Sayegas. Okay. I understand, like, Don't Breathe was okay. I didn't love it as much as other people did.
Yeah.
I walked out of Alien Romulus thinking almost the opposite that I did with Evil Dead 2013. Which was okay. Evil Dead 2013. I was like, wow, I can't believe he took the Evil Dead and he gave us the fan service that we wanted, but he made it his own. And I walked out of this movie going, okay, so he took this from Alien, this from Aliens, this from Prometheus, this from Covenant, this from Alien Resurrection, and he piecemealed together. I saw somebody call this the most expensive fan film ever made.
Yeah, I think Chris
that's
Sutton
what
said
it
that.
felt like.
Yeah.
There were parts of this movie, and Chris posted his review. I don't know if you saw Chris's review, but Chris and I were talking this afternoon on Instagram, and we both said there are moments in this movie that made us roll our eyes.
Yes,
like,
yes.
Oh my God, I can't believe they did that.
Yeah.
And I never felt that in Evil Dead 2013. There is a moment in Evil Dead 2013 that is one of my all-time favorite moments in a horror movie ever. I got up and screamed in the middle of the theater. Like, fuck yes!
Yeah.
And in this movie, there was fan service to a point. And I put up a spoiler-free short earlier this morning.
Yeah.
And I I said that, and my little tagline for it was, "Is this too much fan service?"
Okay.
Question mark.
Yeah.
And I think there's a line you have to toe when you're making a franchise movie,
Yeah.
when you're making one of these legacy sequels, or you're trying to place a movie within a franchise. This is like Alien 1.5. It comes after Alien. It's basically what Saw 10 did.
Yeah.
It's in between parts 1 and 2.
Right.
And I literally wrote down Alien, Aliens, Prometheus, Resurrection, Covenant, and I put down things that it borrowed from each of those movies. That it got to a point where, when I was watching Fede Alvarez's movie that he had his own unique vision for, I was really, really enjoying it.
Right.
But then it would go so hard into the fan service, and like almost Gus Van Sant Psycho style copying of scenes from that are done better in the franchise. And I was just like, oh, why is he doing this? Why is he going back to this? Like, we've seen this before. This, like, and it left me walking out of the theater disappointed, because I had high hopes for it.
Yeah.
Not disappointed that I had just seen the worst movie of all time. Not
Right.
disappointed in that I got nothing out of it. I did. It sounds like I'm being overly negative, but I did like the movie. I do recommend it. I think
Yeah.
it's a good Alien movie,
Right.
but it's not the movie I was hoping it would be.
Okay.
If that
All
makes
right.
any sense. And maybe that's on me, because again, maybe that's me walking in with, oh man, he's gonna Evil Dead 2013 the shit out of this franchise. I can't wait. And I found myself in the theater like going like, okay, yeah, okay, oh, okay. And then there's one scene in particular where I literally went, oh no, don't do that. Oh.
I can't wait to get the spoilers and you can tell me what that is. But
Yeah.
what I was going to say was, I don't think that there is a franchise besides Alien that has had so many different directors, and that each of them has this own unique perspective and made their own type of movie. You know, there's all these different franchises that we love and that are filled with these legacy sequels now, these prequels at this point. And this is the only franchise where there is this different vision. Maybe like Mission Impossible, they have like different directors, but this is like the main franchise where it's like, oh, okay, it's this type of movie. Now it's this type of movie. And I think that what happens is you get this like polarized fan base where people will really hate one version or one movie in the series, and people really love it. And they'll be like, I don't understand why people hate this one so much. This one is so great. And that's the thing I saw in build up to this movie. I saw a lot of people saying Alien 3 is so great. It's like the third best one. I don't know why people don't like it. Alien 3 is
a lot of people trying to reclaim Prometheus and Covenant as
right.
lost classics, which
Right.
I will bend the knee on one of those, but not the other.
Right.
Like,
and then of course there's also right.
No, go.
Well, and then I've even seen Resurrection, where some people are like, "Oh, Resurrection is really good; it gets a bad rap," you know. And so, I personally don't really like Alien 3, and I get kind of annoyed by these comments on Twitter and stuff, because it's like, "Oh, if you don't like Alien 3, you don't know about film, or like you don't understand that this is what's great about this series." And I just think that it's so dour and bleak. And I think that what they did with like Newt and Ripley and Hicks, you know, I just think that it's too jarring. It's too much, you know. So I don't like Alien 3. It would go lower on my ranking than this movie. And then I think that Alien Resurrection is kind of goofy. I read the script for Alien Resurrection that Joss Whedon had written before the movie came out, and I was like, oh, I like that movie. And that movie kind of feels like this movie, where they try to make it like Alien and Aliens together in the same thing, you know?
Yeah. I also kind of felt like this was Alien, if Alien had come out, or if Aliens had come out post Scream. because
Hmm.
it has. So to take us back to Romulus, we're dealing with a much younger cast.
Yeah.
Um, we're dealing with like a cast that looks like they could be anywhere from 19 to 26.
Yeah. Yeah.
And uh, there's a lot of, they just to like get the plot summary out of the way. You have this, like, what is it? It's like a mining planet, and this they're trying to work off their time so they can get off this mining planet. People are dying on the planet from all of these mining related diseases,
Yeah.
and the main character, Rain, Kaylee Spaney, and her android, Andy, played by David Johnson, who I think we can agree right off the bat is the best part of the movie.
Yes, I
Uh,
do.
yeah, I think most people would be in agreement. That's most of the consensus I've seen so far is that David Johnson kills it in this movie. And more from him, please, because he was excellent. I really enjoyed um, the way he, within the same body, portrays almost two separate characters, which was really
Yep.
cool. Very
Hmm.
similar to the way Fassbender was, except he was actually playing two separate characters. Um, so that
Right.
was really cool. And they meet up with like, I think it's like her ex and a group of like other 20 somethings on this mining planet who they find out that there's kind of like a ship just floating in space above them. So they take off and they dock with this ship in an attempt to steal its uh, cryo chambers so that they could blast off and go to this other planet with sunlight, and get off of this horrible existence that they have. And of
Yeah.
course, the ship that they get onto, the Romulus and Remus, is carrying aliens,
Yeah.
and that triggers the whole plot.
Right.
And they end up having to battle, both face huggers and uh, fully developed aliens.
Yes. And I'm actually all on board for that. I only my only real problem with this movie is that it tries to just have those same kind of moments. Like, how many alien movies have we seen where it's like, okay, here's the android. Is the android evil or is the android good? Are they working because they're trying to help the humans, or are they working because they're working for Wayland Yutani? So that's like every fucking alien movie, right? And then it's like, okay, here's these characters. Like, we have talked about aliens so much on this channel, whether it's In Search of Tomorrow or that kind of stuff. We, talk with David Weiner, and we talk about how we love aliens so
We
much. We
talked
talked
about
to
it with Ian Nathan too, when we covered Aliens Expanded.
right,
Um,
and we talk about how it's like a classic and it has these amazing, memorable characters, and then we talk about like how the dialogue is so great and quotable. Right, this movie, I actually think the characters are good, but essentially there is like three memorable characters and then like four characters that are essentially just there to go through the process of being in an alien movie, right? There's Andy, there's Rain, and then I think, believe it or not, I think people are going to disagree with me. Cody Leach definitely disagrees with me. I think that the guy who hates Andy is memorable, but he's mainly, this is the part that goes along with Cody Leach. He's memorable because of how much of an asshole he is, and he has a really
yeah,
okay.
he's
So
he.
why don't we go into
Oh, go ahead,
spoilers
go
too?
ahead.
By the way, yeah, let's go into spoilers, and then I would say that like, so there's three other people with them. They go up to this station, the Romulus and Remus station, and those people are like generic, and I feel like they don't stand out any more than any other character in any regular alien movie. They could be like more like from the people from Covenant and Prometheus, but in the original four, these characters don't stand out. Their deaths are interesting, you know, but it's like, it's not that thing of Aliens where like the characters are so memorable, the dialogue is so quotable. Alien in itself has amazing, amazing characters. I think that Aliens, we like the characters more and we're more invested, but Alien has incredible characters too. Now,
Alien, I think both of those movies it can be argued are two of the greatest ensemble pieces.
Right.
If I asked you right now, I'm willing to bet, and you don't have to do this, but I'm willing to bet you can name all 7 of the crewmates of the Nostromo.
I could.
I'm willing to bet that you can name at least 7 crew members in Alien. And like we talked about it with Ian Nathan when we had him on, that T-shirt that they sell that has the list from the computer of like the crew in order of rank, and it's like you remember the characters that were like are the first to die off,
right?
Because they had one moment on screen and it was memorable,
right?
And you compare that to this movie. Aside from Rain and Andy, I don't know if I remember anybody else's name. I think I remember that the droid's name was Rook.
Right, because it's not Ash. Right.
Yeah.
and we're in spoilers now, by the way. So,
okay,
guys, spoilers.
I felt like the other 4 people on that ship are 4 of the most generic,
right,
run of the mill, here to get killed, here to provide scares, like the lead boyfriend type character. He just does lead boyfriend type things. Then you have generic asshole character. Then you have generic cool, pilot girl. And then you have generic sexy but pregnant woman. And like
that's my favorite search on
they
X
have
videos.
They have no other discernible features, no other character traits. And here's a question I have, and this really kind of irked me for the first 15 minutes of the movie.
I know what you're going to say.
They make it seem... What?
The sound, right? Like you couldn't tell what they were saying?
Oh, no, it wasn't even that. It was... They're on this mining planet.
Yeah.
They basically... Rain has done her time, and the woman's like, nope, sorry, you need to work here 6 more years. And so it's like, okay, well, there's no way off of this planet. Oh, we can just hop into any random ship and just easily leave the atmosphere?
Okay, so they do actually explain that.
You can? Okay, because...
Well, no, it's not that it's like you can't get into a ship and leave. The problem is that they need the cryo chambers so that they can go somewhere else. Somewhere they actually want to live. Like they could travel in space, but without the cryo chambers, they wouldn't last to any kind of destination. Specifically, this really good planet they want to go to. That's the whole purpose. It just felt
like they shouldn't have been able to even take off without anybody noticing. Like I thought there was going to be like this big chase sequence where they like had to, almost Star Wars-esque, where like they're trying to, like, what is it? Empire Strikes Back, where they're setting up the gun as they're getting onto the Millennium Falcon and they just take off in time. I thought it was going to be something like that. And it turned out to be like just a casual cruise straight up out of the atmosphere to investigate some rogue science vessel to steal their cryo chambers. I thought that was too easy of a way to get to the plot.
Right. Well, I mean, if we're going to go into like plot holes or issues that we have, I think the main thing that I have a problem with is that in Aliens, they treat it like they didn't really know what happened on the Nostromo, and Ripley showing up gives them an idea about the alien, and that like Burke sends people in the colony to go find the derelict spaceship because of what he learned from Ripley. But this movie, since we're in spoilers, the very first sequence we see is a ship going to the wreckage of the Nostromo and finding the alien itself.
Or like finding the meteor that the alien crashed into when it was blown out of the airlock. Like that's...
No. I took it as like the alien, you know how the aliens kind of make weird kind of fucking growths in ships and stuff? I took it that like it did that to itself, like it cocooned itself. Okay. That's how I read that. Yeah. But I mean, who cares, right? Because we're talking about like kind of the quality of the movie itself. And I actually really, really loved the first act of it because I love seeing that world. and just how like miserable it is. And I love seeing these futures where like corporations just dominate people and people are just basically slaves. Because I'm like, oh, that's our future, like next
That's
year.
also a very big part of the original movie. When you
Yeah,
go back and
yes.
you listen to the dialogue that Parker and um, uh, see, now I'm forgetting the names of the characters. I know Harry Dean Stanton's character.
Oh, what? There's Burke, right?
No, in Alien, in the original.
Oh, sorry. Fuck, man. Now you call me out. Whatever. Harry Dean Stanton. I'll look him up.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
Parker and him are talking, and they're always talking about how they want to make sure they're getting their share, and if they're going to stop at the planet to check out this beacon, they want to make sure they're getting extra time, right? And they want extra money, and it's like these are just the Nostromo was just like a grunt ship with like blue collar workers on it,
Right.
and you get a sense of that, and I did like that. I did like that you get a sense of that alien world. I know that I saw clips where you actually see like sequences that are like parts of the movie that are like tied into like the Hadley's Hope scene, I think, where like he used similar iconography and similar images.
Yeah.
So I like those scenes, and I did like the first part of them on the ship, even though they're, I like the idea of them fighting the face huggers. That was something that really hasn't been done. Of like, there's been face huggers, but we've never seen like the whole idea of having to actually an army of face huggers and having to fight against them, and like the way that great scene where they're going from, I think it's the Remus to the Romulus, and they're and David David is the actor's name, Andy, who now has been upgraded with Weyland-Yutani information and clearances. He is able to tell them the inner workings of the face huggers, and right. they don't have eyes. They go by body temperature, so we're going to raise the temperature in the room. They also hear sound, so don't make any noise. And then there's the the great scene that they showed in the trailer where he just very calmly goes, "Run," and I love, me, I love the dad jokes. So that being a pivotal part of like his character, Andy's character. But then I also love his matter of fact, where they're like, you almost locked us in there. And he's like, no, I calculated precisely how much time it would take for you to make that jump to barely make it. And I really enjoyed that. And I like, the first Alien, the pilot girl getting face hugged, and I like that whole scene. And then this movie actually does something totally new. It shows us the next step in the evolution. Because in the original movie, all we get is we get face hugger, we get chest burster, and then chest burster runs away, and then Brett's his name. Brett finds
I looked him up. Yeah.
The alien drops behind him, and all of a sudden, the chest burster has become this giant xenomorph. Now we get this middle step where the chest burster like almost creates a giant wall vagina and is birthed out of this like basically vaginal looking opening.
Yes.
But like that's something we never saw before. So I was watching that, and you're like, oh God, this is gross. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to see cool shit like this.
Yes.
And so now the more we're talking about it, the more I'm like realizing the stuff that I enjoyed. It's like, you're always, so this movie has a lot of that stuff. The stuff that you mentioned, like all of this stuff and Alvarez does a great job. Everything looks fucking great in this movie.
Absolutely.
And, like you could tell Ridley Scott produced it. It was produced by Scott Free, which is his production company, and you could tell that like a lot of work was done to make this movie look like it's in the world of Alien and Aliens and not the other movies.
Right, not
Covenant until later.
Yeah. Right. And we'll get to that too. I mean, I personally would rank this higher than you did. Like you said, it was like a 6 out of 10. And I would give it like an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10, but I would give like Alien and Aliens a 10 because I love those movies so much. But there are little details in the reviews that I've watched. People have talked about how it's very clear that Fede Alvarez loves this franchise and he wanted to like recreate that magic. And so like there isn't really anything in this movie. Like I think when you're watching a franchise where essentially you've seen this setup, you've seen these elements in 9 movies, even though I don't really want to include Alien versus Predator, either one of them. I think that what you're watching it for is, okay, this is good. This is good. Hopefully there's not this weird moment, or hopefully there's not this stupid moment, or like where they're going to drop the ball, or hopefully the scares or the kills aren't going to seem like lackluster compared to what we've seen in the other movies. And I don't think that this movie ever really does that for me. But it doesn't like kind of go above and beyond and make it something new and different. And you've already kind of said that too. Like, one thing that I think we need to talk about too, because I know we're like all over the map because there's a lot to talk about with this movie. You were talking about, and we're going to get into this now, how there's like references and almost like recreations of scenes from other Alien movies, and that's where you were groaning. I actually think that like when it comes to the stuff that they brought in from Prometheus, that made me kind of get excited. Not because I'm this huge Prometheus fan, but I'm like, oh, it's all the same world. They're kind of trying to like justify and explain some of the weird stuff that's in Prometheus and in Alien Covenant. And so they kind of tie it all together. And the one thing, let's just get right to this. They eventually do recreate one of the lows of the franchise, which is when there's this newborn creature that shows up in Alien Resurrection. A lot of people consider that to be like the lowest point of just the Alien franchise, and they recreate it. But they recreate it using Prometheus. And so for me, a guy that loves lore so much, I'm like, no, they did this well this time.
I 100% agree. Yeah. I genuinely really liked that ending part.
Yeah.
You see that Ian Holm android on the web series.
There's Mike Bongiorno.
So let's talk about before we jump all the way to the ending. Let's talk about Rook, because they find this android that is cut in half exactly the way Bishop was in Aliens. But it's Ian Holm, who passed away 4 years ago. Right. And it's his facial recognition, voice recognition, and it's basically the Ash model. He even goes so far as to use the same lines that he used, the famous line, "I can't lie about your chances, but you have my sympathies." He uses the exact line of dialogue. He serves the exact same purpose as Ash. I thought that was a little too much. Yes. I also was wondering, Lance Henriksen is alive. And I was kind of wondering when the movie was over, I know Lance Henriksen is old. I know he's in his, I believe, his late 70s or early 80s. And I've seen pictures of him lately, and he does not look like he is in the best condition. I hope he is. I love Lance Henriksen.
Ditto.
But I wonder if they approached him, even to just do some voice work and maybe do like facial recognition scans so that they could have done a Bishop android. Because I would have preferred that, knowing that Lance Henriksen is alive, to having to look. You know the scene in Rogue One where they have Grand Moff Tarkin at the end?
Yeah.
Like
he's in the whole thing.
what?
He's in multiple scenes, Grand Moff. It's not just the end. Leia's at the end.
Yeah, but Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One doesn't like become a main character.
Right.
And so it never really feels like it's exploitative of Peter Cushing because he's kind of just there in the background and you see his face and you're like, oh, I remember him. This teetered on exploitative for me. I don't know. And again, I don't know. I'm hoping, I'm confident that Ridley Scott, Fede Alvarez, they got all the permissions that they needed for Ian Holm's family. But it just felt weird looking at the face and hearing the voice of Ian Holm years after he passed away in this movie. And he was such an important character. He wouldn't go away. He was in the movie the whole fucking time. And that annoyed me because you had a cooler android in the movie already with Andy.
Yeah, well, the way I saw it, he's laying face down. He's severed in half, like you said, like Bishop. And so I thought, okay, they're going to take his chip out. Because even in the trailers, they make Andy seem more sophisticated than he is at the beginning of the movie. So I was like, okay, they're going to like do something with this android, and it's going to affect Andy, and he's going to become more sophisticated. I saw him in half, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's going to be Ian Holm, but maybe they're just going to like show him in shadow, and like maybe he'll make some kind of movement. And that's what happens at first. They go to get the chip, and there's a really great jump scare where like he's active and he like lunges for Rain. And I thought that was going to be it. And I think I would have been fine with that. But like you said, he's like throughout the movie. At one point at the very end, he's just like on a computer monitor and he's like saying like, don't do this or whatever. And the station is crashing. And I was like, oh my God, he's still around. I was annoyed by that myself. And so I think just like you said, they used him too much. I actually am glad that they wouldn't use Bishop, though. I know, but that they wouldn't use Bishop because Bishop. I mean, because you got to remember that this is in between Alien and Aliens, and so there's like a lot of time between like where you'd have the Ash model and the Bishop model.
Bishop does say in Aliens that those models, they were defective. That would never happen with one of our models. He does say that during like when he's first discovered. In the when Ripley first realizes that it's him.
Right, exactly. And so like I think also just like having Bishop have this like kind of you remember him as like this altruistic android, this good android. It's kind of good that he's not sullied in this movie. I think fans would have been bothered by that too. But like I like the connective stuff because I feel like it all works. What falls short for me is where they like go to recreate sequences, and every freaking Alien movie, it's always the same thing. It's always like, okay, there's like one alien left, and we got to get rid of it. Luckily, the ship is like blowing up, or there's an opening in the ship, and we're gonna suck it out into space. And that's pretty much every single Alien movie. Yeah.
I literally had posted the day before I saw it. I really hope the alien doesn't get sucked out of an airlock. And they actually tease that in this movie. And then the elevator falls and like blocks the hole. And I was like, yay, all right. They did it. But then that led to the most groan and eye-rolling inducing part of the movie where Andy saves Rain with the pulse rifle that the Colonial Marines use.
Right.
Thanks, Captain Obvious. We needed that line of dialogue. And he gives her the "stay away from her, you bitch" line.
Yeah.
Which in canon now means that Andy the android said it before Ripley.
Yeah.
And the person behind me could have seen my eyeballs when that happened. I said, I think I wrote in my Facebook review, I was like the Undertaker hearing a dad joke, whereas like my eyes could not roll further back into their head when that part happened.
It's so awkward and messed up, and it's like kind of cringeworthy of like when Han Solo gets his name in Solo, where he's like, "What's your kin, boy?" It's so forced. But
you're on your own. You're Solo.
It's like just as bad as that. for me, I was like, okay, what's the context of this? Because like he's an android. It's like Terminator, where like John Connor says something to him and then he repeats it later, like "Hasta la vista, baby." And I remember that like one of the guys on their ship calls Andy a bitch, and so I think that's why he calls the alien a bitch. But it just makes so much more sense with Ripley and the Queen, because she's like a
Yeah.
literal queen giving birth, and so that was probably the biggest groan-inducing sequence. But leading up to it, there's some really great moments. There's this, we have to talk about how there's the acid scene in Zero
Oh,
G.
the acid blood scene was great. Yes.
Yeah. And just like having to navigate through that in Zero G, and then like going up the elevator shaft, and then you hear the alarm going off, meaning that the gravity's going to come back on. That was really tense.
Super tense. But that is what Fede Alvarez does really well. Like he's a really good director at directing tension. Don't Breathe, even though I didn't love it, is a super tense experience to sit through. The Evil Dead remake is super tense. This movie, there's long scenes where you're like legitimately like, okay, what the fuck is gonna happen here? And then some of the kills I thought were like, I'll give you a couple kills. First of all, you've seen the alien tail go through the person and lift them up.
Yeah.
But I think this movie did that scene to completion as good as it's ever been done.
Mm-hmm.
And we have never seen the acid blood melt a human being before. And I thought this movie did that phenomenal. Like, and it gave a great death scene to a character that you wanted to see die from the minute you met him, which is all that archetype is supposed to do: die in a glorious way.
Right. And Cody Leach said that in his review too. I was on board for a lot of what Cody Leach said. I think that like there's a scene that they kept referencing when they were talking about the making of this movie, where they're saying that the crew had to basically turn away, or like the other actors had to turn away when it was being filmed because they thought it was so gross and disturbing. And I was like, okay, what sequence is that? Is it the chest burster scene, with the pilot? Is it that scene where the guy is getting eaten away by the acid? Or is it at the end with the human alien hybrid, and it's like drinking the mother's milk? I was like, which scene is the most disturbing?
Yeah, so we should include that there's a subplot in the movie where Rook, the Ian Holm Ash-like android, basically becomes a literal deus ex machina for the plot. And he tells them that what the Romulus and Remus were doing was that they were trying to basically finish the experiment that Wayland had started way back in Prometheus to find the perfect organism and use the alien DNA to create this kind of like elixir of life that they could take out of the alien and put into humans. And he gives them this like jar of elixir to take with them. And so the pregnant woman, who is like wounded mortally, injects herself with this serum, and we learn, because of a camera on a lab rat, that it regenerates broken tissue, but then it alienizes it later on. And that leads to a very Prometheus-esque birthing sequence gone wrong. And an Alien Resurrection-esque hybrid alien humanoid thing, which I thought was much better than the Alien Resurrection monstrosity.
Totally agreed. And I think it works because the newborn in this one looks like one of the Prometheus engineers. And I was like, oh, it's kind of full circle, because when Prometheus begins, you have an engineer destroying themselves essentially to like give birth to modern humans. So it's like full circle. Yeah.
Did you ever see the movie Splice?
Oh, yes. I love Splice.
It didn't the humanoid thing at the end kind of look like a male version of Ren?
Yes, yes, yes.
Good thing
I think they
Adrian
were
Brody wasn't
inspired.
there. He would have. I gotta
Yeah,
watch what I'm saying now. Your daughter's in the
no, no, no.
background.
I got headphones on. She can't hear
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, well, I mean, he might have gone for that little hole that the thing had on its crotch when they showed that. But the thing was really scary. But it's like ultimately the way it ends is that there's a hole in the ship again, and the thing just falls through the hole, or gets sucked out. And so it's like the same thing over and over again. As a guy that likes lore so much, I would have been interested if like somehow that thing showed it had intelligence, and it's like, oh, this is going to become like one of the engineers, But it's nitpicking. I don't think that this movie is bad, and unfortunately, we live in a time when we're watching these legacy sequels and we're kind of waiting for that moment where like, oh, see, this is why it's not as good as the other ones. But I just think that with something like Alien and Aliens, you look back on those movies and you're like, how did they even make that movie in the first place? It's so good. It's
And
like lightning in a bottle. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want. I just wanted to say, because I was thinking about Ridley Scott, and I just finished reading the book The Future Was Now,
Yeah.
and a lot of the book is about Ridley Scott. And did you see they asked Ridley Scott and Fede Alvarez, for what are your 4 favorite movies of all time? So Fede Alvarez put Alien on his list, of course. Ridley Scott put Blade Runner on his list. The director put his own movie. He's so fucking awesome. Like, like his movies or not.
Yeah.
Like, it takes such friggin' balls to be like, what do you think the 4 greatest movies ever made are? Or what are your 4 favorite movies of all time? And he's like, oh yeah, well, my movie is definitely on that list.
Right. Oh my God. I love his fucking arrogance. He's awesome. And I mean, like, look at this. We're looking at a movie that is almost like 50 years old at this point. And it's
45 years.
45 years. And, look how excited people are about this sequel.
Oh, it's the early estimates are that it's going to make 40 million this opening weekend.
Wow. And Danny just dropped off. Okay. Oh, he's coming back. There's my daughter, Clementine, just looking at the screen, kind of angry. Oh, here he comes. What just happened there?
I have no idea. I'm back.
Uh-oh. You're back.
Okay. Yeah. I said the last thing I said was the early estimates on it are like it's pulling in like about 40 million for the weekend, and it's tracking to be a big success, and it's probably going to mean that we get more Alien movies.
Right. And I'm okay with the extra story, like it keeping going with this story. And maybe even I want to know what happens with David after Covenant. I know people don't like Covenant and stuff like that, but I really like David. I want to know what happens there.
There's been this, we've mentioned it earlier, there's been this like groundswell of like reclamation of Prometheus and Covenant, and maybe this will get Ridley Scott while he's in his, I think he's mid to late 70s now. He's got to be.
I think he might be 80 something.
Yeah. Maybe he'll finish up that new Alien trilogy before he dies.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah. I have one more before we wrap this up and do a franchise ranking. Yeah. I had one question, because Alien and Predator are, of course, married to each other because of the AVP movies and because of Predator 2 all those years back, putting the xenomorph skull in the background. This is the second time in 2 years that we have had basically like a legacy sequel / prequel. Yeah. So where do you put this compared to, again, on just first watch, where do you compare this to Prey?
Yeah, I actually enjoyed this more than Prey. But it might just be because I like the alien world better, and I really like the beginning of this movie and like the world that they're in, and I like that it's connected to all the other movies. What about you?
Oh, I like Prey a lot more. There's something I think that the Alien and Predator franchises could not actually be more different. I think Alien is so overly complicated with uh, engineers and creation and
Androids.
xenomorphs and androids and all these different planets in space. And the Predator franchises, kick-ass alien hunters go to a specific place to hunt the end. And I just love the simplicity of that story. And I remember the characters more in that,
Yeah.
like just the two main, the brother and sister of that movie, like even the dog in that movie, I
Yeah.
thought was such a great character. Like I said, like we both love Aliens because of the characters as
Yeah.
much as the sci-fi, the action, the horror, and all those other things.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest flaw with the rest of the entire Alien franchise is that they decided to focus more on these Weyland Yutani details and these, like, where did it all come from mythology? And they
Yeah.
lost track of the thing that made those first two movies. Yes, Giger's design. Yes, Scott and Cameron directing the shit out of those movies. The production and design, the special effects, all of those things. But it was the characters that carried those movies.
Amen.
And then you get into Alien 3, and it's like, really, it's everybody even looks exactly the same in fucking Alien 3. Alien Resurrection, it's like, yeah, there's some fun characters, but they're fun because they're so weirdly over the top.
Yes.
Prometheus, Covenant, you remember the actor names, but you don't remember the characters, right? Oh, Charlize Theron and Idris Elba were in Prometheus. Holy shit. Danny
Right.
McBride was a pilot in Covenant. And you remember that Michael Fassbender was David, but that's really it.
Right.
And then you have this movie where it's like, okay, you have Rain and Andy, and then you have a bunch of people who are just there to feed the plot, to feed the aliens.
Yeah.
and that's basically it. And I think that the next Alien movie, which I'm sure there will be one, should really try to get back to that. Bring in a writer who can write great characters and make all the mythology and the minute detail secondary to the characters.
Yeah, I agree.
So do you wanna go first on your ranking of the franchise?
I think I might have to save the ranking for another time, and maybe we can make another video and get Mike Bongiorno and Brian in here too, because my daughter she actually wrote me a message saying it's effing time. She put little asterisks so it's not the actual word. But yeah, I gotta be with my daughter. But I the reason why I just say that though is because I think that you like succinctly made a great point about the whole franchise. And I want to talk about the franchise with our other two friends too before we do the ranking. So let's make a whole separate video for that all of them can get on. What I would say though is there is more Alien coming. There's actually going to be an Alien show that the guy who made the Fargo show is working on. So we are getting more Aliens soon. Yeah.
Yes, Hawley, Noah Hawley.
Noah Hawley. That's right. So that's coming too.
I think he also did Legion, which was amazing.
Yes, and Fargo is like one of my favorite shows ever.
That's one of like the Mount Rushmore of shows I haven't watched yet. So
yes.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get going because I got a face hugger right here, ready to take me out. But I appreciate hearing your thoughts. We'll talk about Romulus a little more next time with two more guests, and then we'll do our ranking within the week.
You got it.
All right, we'll see you guys real soon. Make sure you subscribe to the Lastercast, and we'll talk to you then. Look at this.